Long ago, in a village by the great coconut trees and the singing ocean, there lived a young woman named Amina. She was beautiful. Oh, she was too beautiful. Her eyes shone like the surface of the Indian Ocean when the sun rises. Her skin glowed like warm honey, and her laughter made even the old mango trees seem to sway. But Amina had one problem. She was proud. When young men came to her home, farmers with strong arms, fishermen with shiny scales still on their hands, traders with coins that jingled in their pockets, Amina would shake her head and say, "No, I will not marry a man from here. I want someone from far away, rich, handsome, mysterious." Her mother would sigh. Her father would frown. And the village women whispered, "Beauty without humility is a curse waiting to wake." But Amina didn't listen. Days passed, weeks passed, seasons turned. Then one evening, just as the red sun sank behind the baobab trees, a stranger arrived. He came riding a white horse that snorted smoke. He wore a long cloak of silk that shimmered like moonlight. His voice, was soft like sugar and deep like the sea. "My name is Bwana Suleiman," he said. "I come from a faraway island across the ocean. I seek a bride whose beauty matches the stars." Amina's eyes widened. Her heart skipped. This was the man she had dreamed of, handsome, rich, from far away. That night, the village gathered. The drums were played. Everyone celebrated, though some whispered that the stranger's shadow moved even when he stood still. Some swore they saw feathers under his cloak. But who would listen when gold coins poured from his hands? The marriage was done quickly. Amina's mother wept, feeling a stone in her heart. Her father nodded, uneasy but proud. And Amina, she smiled like someone who had just caught the wind itself. The next morning, Bwana Suleiman said, "My beloved wife, let us travel to my home across the hills and valleys." So Amina climbed onto the white horse behind him. They rode. Through the coconut fields, through forests where monkeys watched in silence, through lands where no people lived. At first, Amina was filled with wonder. The stranger sang beautiful songs. He told stories of golden palaces and dancing servants. But as the day turned to night, she began to notice things. His hands, too cold. His eyes, too bright in the dark. And when he smiled, his teeth looked sharp, too sharp. "Are you tired, my love?" he asked. "No," Amina whispered, though fear was growing like a weed inside her chest. They stopped to rest near a huge rock shaped like a skull. The air smelled strange, like blood and feathers. Amina heard rustling behind her, wings beating softly in the dark. "What is that sound?" she asked. "Just the night birds," he said, but his voice cracked for the first time. "Just the night birds." The moon climbed higher, the wind grew colder. And then, he began to laugh. At first it was a low chuckle, then a shriek that made the trees shiver. He stepped away from her, lifted his arms, and his cloak fell open. Amina gasped. Feathers burst from his skin like knives through silk. Bones snapped, crack, 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 echoing through the valley. His face stretched and twisted. His mouth became a beak. His beautiful hands tore apart, growing claws as black as night. He was no man. He was a Dege, a monstrous bird spirit. Huge and terrible, eyes burning like coals. "You wished for a man from far away," the Dege hissed. "Now you shall live far away, from the world of the living." He spread his wings, the sound like thunder breaking mountains. Amina fell to her knees, screaming, "Help me, help me." But who could hear her there, so far from home? The Dege grabbed her with his claws and flew high, higher than the clouds, higher than fear itself. Below, the land became a blur of shadows. Amina could see her village lights faint and distant like dying stars. Tears streamed from her eyes. The wind tore her veil away. And she remembered her mother's words. Pride can make a girl blind to danger. Now she understood. The Dege carried her to a mountain cave, dark and silent except for the sound of dripping water and bones crunching underfoot. There were bones everywhere, small ones, large ones, bones with rings still on the fingers. The smell of death was thick. Amina trembled. Please, she whispered. Let me go, I will serve you, I will not scream. The Dege laughed. No, little bride, you are not here to serve. You are here to feed. He came closer. His feathers brushed her cheek, cold, soft, deadly. His beak opened, shining wet in the moonlight that crept through the cave mouth. But then, something happened. As he reached for her, Amina remembered something her grandmother once said. A woman's tears are not weakness, they are a weapon when mixed with prayer. So Amina began to sing. A song of her village, of the sea, of home. Her voice trembled, but it grew stronger with every word. The Dege screeched and covered his ears. Stop that human noise. But she didn't stop, she sang louder, her voice echoing like bells in the cave. Mungu wangu, save me from this darkness. Spirits of my mothers, guide me home. The cave shook, the air rippled. The Dege staggered backward, his wings flapping wildly. He screamed as light began to pour through the cracks in the cave walls. The song called to the dawn, to the first light of morning. And when the sun rose, the Dege shrieked, a sound that split the sky, and burst into ashen feathers. Amina collapsed. For a long time, there was only silence. Then the wind changed. She heard the sound of footsteps, the voices of travelers who had come searching for the missing bride. They found her trembling, covered in ashes, eyes full of horror and wisdom. They carried her home. Her parents wept when they saw her. She could not speak for days. But when her voice returned, she told everyone what had happened, the gold, the beauty, the deceit, the wings. From that day, the elders of the village told this story to every young woman who dreamed too far. Do not let the shine of strangers blind your eyes. Sometimes the richest smile hides the sharpest beak. And sometimes, when the wind howls at night and the trees rustle like feathers, people still whisper, Dege still flies, searching for the next bride who loves beauty more than truth. Moral of the story: pride and greed make the heart deaf to warning. Listen to your elders, for not every handsome face is human, and not every promise from afar brings joy.